Welcome, everyone, to Rutgers at the Voice of College Football. Hope everyone's doing great tonight. We've got the link to the show in the chat if you'd like to call in, discuss Rutgers football or college football generally. And tonight, we're going to be discussing three topics. First, a season recap of the Scarlet Knights football program and results. Number two, an assessment of the Rutgers football program at this juncture. And number three, more generally, some college football news, particularly in light of these selections for the college football playoff. So let's get right to it. And if you like the show, hit that like and subscribe button. We appreciate it. Look forward to your comments and hope you call in to have a very, very spirited debate. Okay, so let's get to our first topic. Season recap for Rutgers. Well, where do we begin? We begin where it ended, in East Lansing, Michigan. Rutgers with a 41-14 victory over the Michigan State Spartans. Before I get into the statistics, team and individual, I spent 4 years in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It was interesting, a bit dreary. Spent some time in Michigan, went to East Lansing, didn't like it. Ann Arbor is the place to be, but I digress. So, as I said, ended the regular season with a 41-14 victory over the Michigan State Spartans. Let's talk about the team statistics. Total yards. Rutgers 365, Michigan State 253. Passing yards 157 for Rutgers, 150 for the Spartans. Rushing yards 103 for Michigan State, 208 for Rutgers. Yards per play 5.2 for Rutgers, 5.3 for Michigan State. First downs, Rutgers 24, Michigan State 13. Third down efficiency, 7 of 13 for Rutgers, over 50%. Only 3 of 9 for Michigan State, 33%. Fourth down efficiency, Rutgers 1 for 1, Michigan State 0 for 3. Total plays, get this, 70 for Rutgers and only 48 for the Spartans. Time of possession, 35 minutes, 8 seconds for Rutgers, 24 minutes, 52 seconds for Michigan State. Sparty did not have a good day in dreary East Lansing. Individual statistics, let's talk about those. Rutgers quarterback, Ethan Kaliakamanis, 13 of 22 for 157 yards and a touchdown. A decent day, not a great day. Star running back Kyle Monongai out of Don Bosco Prep, 31 carries, 129 yards for a 4.2 yards per carry average and 1 touchdown. Antoine Raymond, another Don Bosco Prep product. And I went to rival high school, Bergen Catholic, but Don Bosco deserves credit where it's due. 9 carries, 71 yards, 7.9 yards per carry average, 2 touchdowns. Wide receivers, Ian Strong, 4 receptions for 55 yards and a touchdown. Daimir Miller, 4 receptions, 48 yards, and KJ Duff, 4 receptions for 21 yards. So, what did Coach Schiano have to say at the post-game press conference? Well, he didn't mince words. He said that this team was the most mentally tough group of players that he has ever coached. And given where Schiano has coached, that says something. Most mentally tough group, particularly because of the injuries that have decimated the team, particularly the defense throughout the year. He said the victory in the season generally is a great advancement for the program. And he praised the players for what? For living up to CHOP. What does he mean? The Rutgers mantra to keep working hard, keep chopping away, even when it's hard, even when you don't want to, even when you're facing adversity. He said this team exemplifies CHOP in its greatest sense. Said the players never blinkered, never wavered despite the challenges they faced. Like I said, terrible, terrible slew of injuries. And, while saying he was so proud of the players and of the group, particularly the seniors who were recruited during COVID over an 11-day period, Coach Schiano did seem a bit, I don't want to say regretful, but somewhat nostalgic about what could have been. He said this group had very high goals. And this group would have had a better record if it were not for those injuries. He said, but woulda, coulda, shoulda. You can't go back and change the past. And I think he's right. Rutgers was affected by a plethora of injuries that ultimately did affect it. And without those injuries, we might be talking about Rutgers in a playoff rather than Rutgers in, and I'll get to this later, the Rate Bowl. I'll get to that later. Okay, so they end the season with Michigan State 7-5 overall, 4-5 in the Big Ten. They began the season with a 44-7 victory over Howard, and then a 49-17 victory over Akron. Virginia Tech on the road, they win in Blacksburg 26-23, and then Washington comes into Piscataway, and Rutgers pulls off the victory 21-18. So at this point, Rutgers football perennially at the bottom of their respective conference is 4-0 with victories over Washington and Virginia Tech. Then I started this show, and Rutgers went on a 4-game losing streak. Lincoln, Nebraska, Rutgers loses 14-7. Heartbreaking loss. They had the ball on the 2-yard line, first and goal with Kyle Monangai in the backfield. Couldn't punch it in. Missed a field goal. Faked a field goal. Didn't work. Heartbreaking loss. Then Wisconsin, a very bad Wisconsin team, along with Luke Fickell, comes into Piscataway, and inexplicably Rutgers goes down 42-7, a 35-point loss. Next week in Piscataway, the Bruins of UCLA, Ethan Garber's at quarterback for UCLA. A very poor UCLA team manages to pull off the victory by 3 points, 35-32. And then the next week, the Scarlet Knights go across the country to the University of Southern California Trojans, where they lose 42-20 in a very bruising and physical game where Kyle Monangai suffers a head injury and is knocked out of the game. So now we're at 4-4. And people are starting to wonder, is this the old Rutgers again? Are we reverting back to mediocrity, or dare I say worse? Well, it sure looked like that. And at that point, we have 4 games left. So how's Rutgers going to respond? What is Rutgers going to do? Well, to their credit, Rutgers did respond. Minnesota, the Golden Gophers and P.J. Fleck come to Piscataway on a winning streak, one of the hottest teams in college football, and Rutgers wins the game 26-19 to improve to 5-4. Then Rutgers goes to Maryland to take on the very mediocre Maryland Terrapins 31-17. So we're back 2-game winning streak. And then the heartbreak came again in Piscataway against a very below average Fighting Illini team, University of Illinois. Rutgers has the lead late. Illinois has the ball at midfield, 4th and 6. They convert. And not only do they convert, they score. 48-yard touchdown pass with 8 seconds to go, down 31-30. And Rutgers loses. That was the proverbial nail in the coffin for many. Very, very difficult loss, along with the loss in Nebraska. They go to 6-5, but they do respond once again, echoing Greg Schiano's sentiment that this is a team that keeps chopping, keeps overcoming adversity, and keeps staying resilient. 41-14 to finish 7-5 on the season, 4-5 in the Big Ten. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, it means that Rutgers is going on December 26th, the day after Christmas, to the Rate Bowl to face Kansas State, a pretty good Kansas State team. Now, I don't know about all of you, but let's just digress for a second. They're going to the Rate Bowl. Now, I think I've been pretty tolerant, listening to things like the Cheez-It Bowl, the Chick-fil-A Bowl, the Pinstripe Bowl. You know, I don't know who names these bowls, but I assume the people that are responsible for naming them are probably pretty wealthy and successful in the corporate world. And then they come up with these nonsensical names. The Rate Bowl, what the hell does that mean? I have no idea what it means. If that's the best that these people can do, no wonder we have such high inflation, gas prices, and house prices. Forget about it. Have some common sense for a change. But we're not going to penalize Rutgers or Kansas State for that utterly ridiculous name. They will be going to the Rate Bowl on December 26th, looking to close out the season 8-5. So that's the recap of the season. And as we look forward to next season, it does bear repeating that on this show and on future shows, we're going to be talking about recruiting. So as we look ahead, where is Rutgers in the recruiting process? Well, currently, Rutgers, number 30 in the country in recruiting. 3 stars. Rutgers has 26 3 stars committed. They have 1 4-star. And you know where I'm going? I'm going to the 5 stars now. How many 5 stars do you think they have? I don't think we need a drum roll for this. 0. None. It reminds me a bit of Iowa. Iowa, a great program at developing players. Historically has achieved far more success, of course, than Rutgers. That ends up with a grade of 87.952 from On3. And like I said, we will be having future shows dedicated to recruiting specific players and projections about transfer portal and possible additions in recruitment. 26 3 stars is great. 1 4-star, not good enough. 0 5 stars, not good enough. Rutgers, start buying players from the portal. Start paying players out of high school. We need 3 or 4 5 stars. Once you set that precedent that you can get 5 stars, there's going to be a domino effect. And then more 5 stars are going to come. And then you're going to start winning more. And when you start winning more 5 stars want to come. And you start filling the stadium and making more revenue, meaning you can pay these players. So either you're committed to a recipe for success or a recipe for mediocrity. And that brings me back to our second topic. Assessment of Rutgers football. Well, let me just say, as we begin this segment, that Coach Greg Schiano deserves a tremendous amount of credit. And Coach, we look forward to having you on the show. Did a tremendous job this year. And it bears repeating that when Schiano came to Rutgers from 2001 to 2011, he inherited a program in shambles. And in only 4 years, he rehabilitated the program and made it nationally relevant, where we beat legitimate teams and were taken seriously, turned the program around, and did a fantastic job. He then left, of course, as you all know, and we endured more years of what Rutgers has historically been. Bad, bottom of their respective conference. Rutgers fans and the entire state of New Jersey was forced to endure the Chris Ash era. I need not traumatize you with any more information about that. But Schiano comes back, and what is Greg Schiano doing? He's doing the exact same thing he did during his first stint from 2001 to 2011. He's turning the program around. Once again, in his 4th year, Rutgers has turned their record around and is now on an upward trajectory, 7-5. So, Coach Schiano, congratulations to you. I know it's been difficult with the injuries and with, you don't have the same resources that an Ohio State, a Georgia, and Alabama does. But credit to you and for some of the victories you've had this year, which were impressive. So that brings me to my first question. 3 questions about assessing Rutgers football right now. Number 1, is a 7-5 record considered a good year for Rutgers? Now, some Rutgers fans, particularly those that endured the Chris Ash era, and, well, let's just be honest, the vast majority of Rutgers football existence, when Rutgers was at the bottom of the conference, might say 7-5 was a success. I would say this, and this is a very difficult conclusion to come to. Is 7-5 good this year? No. we could have and should have accomplished so much more. And I'll tell you why. This is a year where we had a very senior-laden team, a lot of guys with experience, especially on the defensive side. Number two, and I cannot stress this enough, we had a pretty easy schedule, okay? We didn't have to play Oregon. We didn't have to play Ohio State, okay? We had UCLA, not that they were very good, but we had UCLA at home. We had Washington at home. We had Minnesota at home. We had Illinois at home. Okay, this was the year with the seniors and with the favorable schedule that we should have gotten the job done. And when you look at our losses, 14-7 in Lincoln, Nebraska, 35-32 against UCLA, and then with 6 seconds left, losing on the last play touchdown pass against the Fighting Illini, not a great team by any means. What does that mean? It means we should have been 10-2. And I say that despite the injuries. And why do I say that? Because we were that close. We were 6 feet away from tying the game against Nebraska in Lincoln, and we couldn't punch it in. We missed a field goal. We faked the field goal. It didn't work. All right? We were 1 play away from beating the Fighting Illini. We were 3 points away from defeating UCLA. Okay, this season could have and should have been 10-2. Now, I'm not blaming Coach Schiano. I'm not blaming the players. He's right. They deserve a ton of credit for persevering through a very, very uncharacteristic level of injuries. But as in football, as in life, no excuses. Next man up. You still have to keep chopping, as Rutgers would tell you. So those losses mean that the season was pretty good, but significantly dampened by what we know could have been and, in fact, should have been. So if I had to say, were we good? It was okay. Season was okay. What grade would I give the team? I'd give the team a B-. Second question, what's the future look like? Is the future going to, and this is a critical question, what's the future going to look like for Rutgers? Because Rutgers is at a crossroads right now. For years, decades, over half a century, Rutgers was the laughingstock of college football. But in Schiano's first stint, Rutgers became relevant. In his second stint, they're becoming relevant again. But can they sustain it? Can they continue it? Can Rutgers compete with the Ohio States, the Oregons? Or is Rutgers going to remain in perpetuity the poster child for mediocrity or worse? Well, like I've said on other shows and will continue to say, that depends on 3 things. Developing your players, buying players from the portal and from high school in the recruiting process, okay, and winning and placing players in the NFL and thereby presenting 5 stars with a package that leads to success at Rutgers and in life